You're listening to Trek FM.
Hello and welcome to From There to Here, Trek FM's 50th anniversary rewatch of Star Trek, in which we look at all 729 episodes from beginning to end. I'm Mike from Stage 9, and with me today is Lee from Earl Grey. What?
I know, it's the first time I've been introduced with that status, so it's a proudest punch moment.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. I can't wait to hear you talk about Next Generation.
But instead, we're going to have a nice block of talking about Deep Space Nine and Voyager first.
Yeah. No Next Generation for you today. You're going to have to hold off on that one. People are going to have to seek that out elsewhere. But today, as a teaser, we're talking about 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine. The first 2 episodes of Season 7 of Deep Space Nine, Image in the Sand and Shadows and Symbols. So let's get started with Image in the Sand. You want to give us a brief synopsis of this, Lee?
Yeah, I think it's one of these episodes where you almost need 7 years of knowledge to give a synopsis on this one. But the basics is Jadzia Dax has been dead for 3 months and everything's gone to pot. Sisko's still on Earth and he's being hunted by Pa-Wraith agents. The Deep Space Nine, everything's going a bit haywire there. The Romulans are setting up a post on Bajor. That's kicking off some tension. And Sisko is starting to get visions of his mother being a prophet. Hey, what's that all about? So yeah, quite a lot to get through in this one.
Yeah, they really do a lot of mythology building here. You know, it's interesting. I've always liked this episode, and it's like part of the whole thing, and season 7, we're going into the final stage here. And I saw something online from someone, I don't know even who he was, but he's someone who's watching Deep Space Nine for the first time, and he was saying that he found the season 7 premiere to be like a letdown, and he didn't understand why fans were not outraged by it. And I don't quite understand that.
I think I can kind of understand that, to be honest, because to understand it, I think I need to go back to 98, 99. I just did the episode Tears of the Prophets, the season 6 finale, and I was lucky enough to be in America at the time and actually got to see it months ahead of it being out in the UK. It was out on June in America. It wouldn't have been out on video till December in the UK. It probably wouldn't have been on TV till around that same time, so it was such a thrill to get this episode. So I had to wait until March 99 to actually see the second part of this episode, like how season 7 was going to open, where all these threads were going to go that were left hanging. Like, people talk about Best of Both Worlds being a long summer. That was like 9 months that I had to wait to find out what is going to happen, just the way scheduling was in the UK. And the first time I saw it, I was like so excited. I was like, oh my god, it's going to be back into the war, it's going to be battles, it's going to be everything like that. And I watched it and I was like, oh, this is kind of a bit slow. The biggest action is someone either being stabbed or a blockade. And I was kind of a bit disappointed at the time, especially coming off the high of how season 6 ended. But like now I look back on it and I think I was so wrong. It was that kind of childish urge, as I wanted the action, I wanted it all. But I watch it now and it feels like this whole 2-part is like an indie movie. You've got these 2 threads and they're all converging, like building up to how the end of the second episode. And it just feels like you've got all these different threads that are just completely different, pursuing different challenges for our characters, and they very rarely come close to interacting until the final scene, I think. And that's quite an exciting way to open season 7, something that's quiet, somber and reflective.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to see where everyone is and where they've been since last we saw them, and to take a breath for a minute and see Kira in command of the station and see Sisko hanging out with his dad and all that stuff. And then there's the whole Worf storyline as well, which I think maybe doesn't work as well as the others, but it's something which you had to deal with, obviously, because his life has probably had the biggest change since last we saw him, even if his position in life hasn't really changed as much. So yeah, I think that this episode is pretty great, and I think it is sort of a perfect premiere. And I think Deep Space Nine tends to make their finales much larger than their premieres. I think that's true of television in general. Everyone's excited for their favorite show to come back, but usually the premiere is just kind of like, oh, we're back. I mean, it's rare that it's like some sort of epic blockbuster. It's usually setting up what we're going to see, and it's the finales which are the really exciting things.
Yeah, and it's simple logistics as well, that you've got a season ahead or several seasons ahead depending on the show. Why spend all your money in those first 1 hour, 2 hours, when it's going to be the tail end of the season, the middle of the season, that you're going to want to start spending the money to guarantee that you're coming back for the next year. Like, you can be confident and carry yourself in that first hour or two, knowing that you're going to get the big bumper ratings, that the people are just happy to have it back. So why spend the money? You use it later on to keep people interested.
Yeah. And of course, at the end of this episode, we get the introduction of Ezri Dax, which I guess everyone knew that she was coming before we actually see her, but it's still cool to see her nonetheless. I remember, like, when we found out that Jadzia was dying, or leaving the show and dying. I mean, the question was, like, are they going to replace her with another character? And I think eventually they said, like, yeah, there will be another character. And then I think the thing that everyone sort of thought of in their mind was, like, that character has, like, legacy built into it, and there's no reason, like, out of all the characters, like maybe in Star Trek, that's the one character where you can change the actor and continue the character in a unique way. And I think we all thought, like, oh, are they going to do that? And for a while there, it seemed like, in like interviews and stuff that I saw, it seemed like they may not, I mean, they were not, saying what they were going to do. And then finally it was revealed that, yes, there will be another Dax, and it's going to be, Ezri. And, I mean, what did you think about that?
Yeah, like, it's hard to remember what I thought of at the time. I don't even remember how I found out about it. I was still so young at the time. But, like, I really like Nicole DeBoer, and I think when I heard that she was going to be in it, I immediately recognized her from Cube, which was like a staple of late night sci-fi channel movies at that time. So I'd seen her on TV. I was familiar with her. So it was like, oh, that's great casting. I was familiar with her. So that's always a good advantage to have with the actress.
Yeah, I hadn't seen her in anything yet. I hadn't seen Cube yet. I think it came out like 2 years prior. But hey, if anyone wants to hear about Cube and Nicole DeBoer's performance in it, go check out Stage 9, Episode 21, which we just did a couple weeks ago, where we discuss Nicole DeBoer's early sci-fi movie from the producing director of Star Trek Discovery. All right, well, shall we move on to the second episode for today?
Yeah.
Shadows and Symbols. You want to give a synopsis of this one?
Yeah, the threads of the first episode continue to come closer together. Worf takes Bashir, O'Brien, and Quark into the heart of Dominion space to blow up a sun. Sisko, Jake, his old man, and Ezri go to find the Orb of the Prophets, and Kira and Odo make a blockade against the Romulans.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. And I guess I can kind of see, like, you see the stills from this episode or whatever, and it's like Sisko digging in the desert and, all this stuff, and you're just kind of like, really, but I think it works, really well. We really get to see Ezri for the first time, actually doing stuff. They really, really sort of build on, why Sisko is the emissary, and there's some conclusion to the Worf Jadzia storyline. So on the whole, I think it's pretty solid.
I think it's really ambitious as well that in this kind of second part they go with the return of Benny Russell. That was like one aspect. It's so unexpected when you're watching it the first time. You're thinking, what? Wait, he's back, and it really adds another layer to Far Beyond the Stars, and I think getting Casey Biggs back in, and one of my favorite touches is that the entire written words in this like mental health room is this Star Trek Deep Space Nine companion episode guide parts. I think that's really cool if you're a fan of the book, so it's good to see that like put onto the screen, and it just shows confidence that it's the final season and they're going to just do whatever they want. And bringing in Benny Russell could probably alienate viewers that are coming in for the first time, especially in a final season, and they've gone, nah, you're rewarded if you've paid attention, and if you've not, hey, you'll have to catch up somehow.
Yeah, and it's done in a very, sort of abstract way, and everything like that. And it really does add to that because, the way that Far Beyond the Stars ends, you're just kind of like, oh, this was a vision, that he had or whatever. It's not real, it's a reflection of what we're seeing on Deep Space Nine in a sense, but it's also a commentary on, the world that we as viewers are living in and everything. And it feels like kind of a one-off, even though it's very, very good. It feels like just a one-off, and bringing him back here really, really does open up that mythology quite a bit, and really sort of makes you think about whether or not Benny Russell is real, and whether or not these are parallel, universes or whatever, and whether or not these are two characters which are connected in some cosmic scale. And it's hard to wrap your head around. I definitely had a problem with it back when I was a kid seeing it for the first time, but looking at it now, it's one of the things which I'm sort of most excited about. And hey, another shameless plug, but if you want to hear a more in-depth discussion on Benny Russell on the whole and his place as a Star Trek creator, check out Commentary, Trek Stars number 86, where we look at Benny Russell and his place in the universe, and it's a pretty interesting discussion. So, yeah.
One thing that's always bugged me a bit about this episode is, and I still can't get over it anytime I watch it, is like that final scene where Ezri meets the crew for the first time. It feels really awkward, and not in a like awkward in a scene way, but like awkwardly written. Just the way she kind of comes in, Julian, Kira, Worf, we need to talk, and then she just kind of vanishes off, and then Worf's like, this can't be, and then just kind of strolls off, and it's just like, it feels very dismissive and very, very kind of, I just don't like it. I just don't think it really works as a kind of introduction to this character, and Worf seems kind of a bit ambivalent about it, like, oh, this can't be. Oh, I'm off for a stroll. It's a bit odd. I don't know if it's just me that feels that. What do you think?
No, I can see that, especially since, when we come back in the next episode, Worf is like really, really upset about her being there, But I think in a way, like with it being an introduction to Ezri, it kind of works in that it establishes her character. I think that's what the scene was more about. It was about establishing her in relation to everyone else, and she on the whole is a very sort of upbeat, happy character, and that was sort of like reflected in the scene. So I think it worked well in this particular context, but I think if you look at it in the broader context, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I'd go along with that.
All right. Well, I guess that pretty much wraps up Image in the Sand and Shadows and Symbols. Lee, where can people find you while they're waiting for you to show up on Earl Grey?
Yeah, you might have heard me by now, depending when this episode comes out. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Lee_Nostromo.
Excellent. I've noticed in editing these things that whenever somebody says something like, you can find me on Twitter, I always say, excellent, like twice. Like that's a thing. I need to stop doing that. Good. I'm glad that people can find you on Twitter. Maybe not worthy of two excellents, but, good
I think it's tip-top.
I'll try that next time. All right, and you can find me on Twitter at Mumbles3K, and you can also find me here on Trek FM, hosting Stage 9, where John Mills and I talk about the people who make Star Trek. And tomorrow, the two of us will be back to discuss 2 more episodes of Star Trek, Night and After Image.